Hello, everyone. This is the Free American Press with your host, Alexander Horat. And today we're having my mom on the show. Her name is Maria Horat. And we actually work together. She's the broker of Gold Country Properties, and I'm a realtor. And I actually started just working with her. We have a real estate company here in Northern California. And just really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about how ESGs, they're making these things called ESGs and how they're affecting real estate. So if you'd like to start talking about that and some of the implications of this going on.
Sure. So, real estate has been traditionally a safe haven for homeowners and investors. It has offered security, stability, tax breaks, equity building, and hedge against inflation, return on investment for those who invest into real estate. In the last few years, we have seen an unprecedented housing bubble, which has been the result of quantitative easing practices by the Federal Reserve Bank and other monetary policies. And as both inflation and interest rates have been on the rise, we are also seeing a shift in the global mindset towards giving more value to ESG and sustainable development goals set by the United Nations. The impact on many sectors, such as real estate, cannot be ignored. So what I would like to do is go over what ESGs are and some of the problems that we're going to see or we're already seeing because of ESGs. So what does ESG means? In short, it means environmental, social governance, that is corporate governance. And they use a set of factors. Companies are going to be using a set of factors to assess how well a company integrates sustainability development goals into their investments and policies. The three major components are environmental, social governance, those three things. And when I say corporate governance, they were talking about private public partnerships that the government is going to be making also with a lot of these investment companies. So they have metrics, and there's not a benchmark or a set of metrics that will be used in order to measure these ESGs. Like everyone has their own. And so that's one of the problems. They have been introducing every sector, real estate being one of them, because they said real estate accounts for 1/3 of the global CO2 emissions. So they said that implementation into this sector is necessary in order to combat climate change. So what are the problems with ESGs? The first problem is the distortion of capital resources allocation. So in a free market economy, borrowers, lenders, and investors exchange funds to finance projects based on the highest return for investment. That happens in a free market economy. It's not a perfect thing, but over time, this exchange just results in a much more efficient economy. However, the free market allocation for capital resources is threatened by regulations and policies that seek to implement environmental or social policy into the financial system framework, resulting in diminishing of returns for investment and undermining growth and innovation. The second problem is how banking institutions are going to be in control. So there is something called stakeholder capitalism model, which has been espoused by Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum and other growing list of powerful economic political elites, such as BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and President, of course, Joe Biden, which have recently committed to a global reset of the prevailing school of economic thought aim to replace free market economics. Okay. So, since there's not a uniform approach to specific benchmarks, like I mentioned earlier, measurement and ratings, instead there are multiple overlapping systems. Each sponsor international governmental organization is going to have, and financial institution have the power to implement their own metrics, which is going to ultimately lead to abuse by financial regulators who are not tasked by Congress or voted in by the voters to implement environmental and social policy and lack the necessary expertise to create any policy for that matter. So we're going to see how banking institutions are basically going to have way more power than they already have on shaping society. Another thing I wanted to bring up too, that we can take a look at United States government-sponsored enterprise, and everybody who went through the 2008 housing crash will know who I'm talking about, is Fannie Mae. They largely contributed to the 2008 housing crisis, along with Freddie Mac, which lost a combined $47 billion in the single family mortgage business. Despite the monumental failures and role of the previous housing collapse of the 2008, government-sponsored Fannie Mae is currently offering a suite of green home financing alternatives for the real estate market. So we'll see how this next, bubble burst is going to shape out with all of these green financial alternatives that Fannie Mae has to offer. The other problem with the ESGs is how the large corporations, large corporate investors like BlackRock are benefiting at the expense of others. Corporations such as BlackRock, which is the largest private asset manager, has fully attained the benefits of ESG's investment. They are one of the top 5 shareholders that vest the majority of the shares in ESGs and important global companies, and is perfectly situated to influence ESG decisions via their, the voting blocks that they hold. So therefore, not just banks, but large corporations such as BlackRock are going to have a huge role in reshaping society as a whole. The most obvious problem is how ESGs will lead government to abuse power. Just a few days ago, the EU made an astonishing announcement that it plans to impose carbon taxes on individuals. Carbon taxes, this just happened on December 23rd. So they're planning to impose carbon taxes on individuals. This just came as people are struggling to keep their houses warm because of the lack of fuel. Just the idea of having to pay taxes on every time you turn on the heater or every time you use your fireplace is unthinkable. And it won't take long for that to be implemented here in the US. Back in January of last year, 2022, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen made the announcement that we should start a climate hub with the Department of Treasury, to coordinate a wide-ranging efforts to fight climate change through economic and tax policies. So what is that saying? Other draconian measures, of course, we've seen how carbon emissions are going full speed ahead in Europe, in the Netherlands in particular. For example, countless farms are currently being permanently shut down all over Europe. And in the Netherlands alone, thousands of farmers are facing food shortages because they're being forced to sell their farms whether they like it or not. These ESG regulators also regulations have resulted in a total catastrophe in Sri Lanka, as we've seen, with how the organic farming agricultural practices have just basically decimated the agriculture sector. What Sri Lanka used to be actually considered a middle income. They have just earned the middle income status, and now they are poverty level again because of largely ESG. So I don't know what your thoughts are about all these problems, but these are just a few that I identify.
Well, some of my thoughts on the problem is that this is really going to hurt people who don't have very much money. I think one of the scary things is that it's basically going to be an extra tax on your property. Like if you don't have the new code, like if you don't have a fireplace or you don't live up to their ESG emission codes or whatever for your property, then they're going to increase your taxes or your insurance costs
Mhm.
to drive up prices until you fix the problem that they dictate to you. And I really think it's going to be adversely affecting the small little people in relation to the big corporations and the bankers who are going to be in control of these ESGs. And the thing that scares me is that there's no set standards, so they can just basically make whatever baloney they want to harm individuals and get more money from them while they have really bad things that are really bad for the environment, but if they're in relation with big corporations and stuff, they're not going to be charged anything more. So I'm going to share the screen to show you everyone that's going on with insurance companies. So hurricanes are playing havoc with Florida's property insurance markets. Floridians are worried about rising homeowners insurance premiums, which are 3 times the national average. So this is pretty big right here because the governor, Ron DeSantis, there's a big ESG debate going on in Florida, how climate policy could avoid cultural wars. So basically, Ron DeSantis doesn't want this ESG because it's increasing insurance costs for people in Florida. And the same thing is happening in California as well, with fire insurance costs and everything else with ESGs. If ESGs go up, then that's going to increase the insurance costs for people's property. So insurance companies, ESG investing in real estate. So this is going to increase insurance bills on us because they say there's ESG hazards and everything else in relation to that. So this is pretty crazy that this is going on. It's basically just a way to tax us more. I think if you are going to build houses in the near future, you should build houses now instead of waiting for all these new regulations to come out in California. That's kind of my thought. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point about insurance companies. We're seeing, of course, astronomical insurance premiums here in, especially in Northern California, but the whole state in general because of the fires. And so the way there is going to come down is that they're just going to say, well, if your home hasn't been upgraded to, if your home is not greener, that you don't make all these upgrades that they want you to do to make it greener, you're going to have to pay a higher insurance premium, or we might even get rid of your insurance policy. So either way you look at it, the average person is going to be spending way more, unless there is some other subsidy that comes into place, which is also, either way, is the average person who's going to be holding the bag, because subsidies are taxed, backed by taxes, property taxes, and people's taxes. So it's going to be, a bad situation for everyone except.
And if they get rid of your insurance, that's gonna make it so they can just kick you out of your house, because if you have a mortgage, you need to have their insurance.
Exactly. If you have a mortgage, you have to have insurance. Yeah. So it's not a problem that's just happening here in California. It's happening in Florida too. So it's a good thing that their governor there is, standing up and saying, we're not going to have this in our state, because that's just going to just make it worse for everyone.
It's going to make it unaffordable. So especially if you're in California, you're a builder, it's time to build now, because it seems like every year the regulations get worse and worse, and it's harder to build houses here.
Well, just here in Tuolumne County, they just passed, the climate action plan. And part of the work plan states that if a new development is going to take place, that there will be some very complicated formulas, some ESG metrics that they have to meet so many ESGs, whatever they call it, credits, I don't know, in order for that project to be approved. So the average builder is going to be really, really costly to be able to build anything. So it's going to just be the corporate investors, the corporate builders, the BlackRocks.
They're going to be and then they're going to have a monopoly on the housing market, which they already have a slight monopoly on already. So that's just going to make a problem worse with the housing market here in California. Even though we're actually having a net population decrease in the state. So the housing problem, you think, would start going away because our population's declining, but no, it won't, because they have so many regulations that it'll never go away. It'll continue to get worse as the regulations get worse. So even though our population is declining, we're still going to see people on the streets.
And it's going to be, yeah, exactly. It's only going to fuel the homeless situation and the housing crisis situation. And they're just going to bring about more of the subsidized housing, which is, at the end of the day, income redistribution. People's money, taxes is just going to go to fund all the subsidized housing that are green. And so
that's so they can
going to mean that people are not going to be able to afford building a home or keeping a home or even renting a home from someone, the average person.
And that's so they can control the people too, because you're on the government dole subsidized housing. When before you owned your own house, but they took it away from you and gave you some low income housing. So it's basically the income redistribution, stealing your stuff and giving it to themselves.
Yeah, because that's all it's about. Unfortunately, the banking system, has been also part of this whole scam, and we're seeing it even worse now. So we just need to be aware.
This will definitely affect the real estate market in California.
Yeah, and it's going to affect the real estate market everywhere, but especially in California, when we have a governor that is, full into this green agenda. He just passed 40 regulations, I think it was last September, having to do with climate change. That's going to impact real estate, and it's going to impact our daily lives. So we're supposed to reach a certain goal, 100%, no carbon dioxide emissions by a certain day. That's unattainable as it is right now.
Well,
current grid system doesn't even support what we have that along in a few years. So how are we going to get from point A to point B unless there is some kind of other technologies that we haven't been told that is going to pop up all of a sudden, but that's not likely to happen.
Well, I think the way to get this, what they're doing already. California's population is declining due to their terrible policies. So once their population's near zero, then they're going to meet their goals, won't they?
Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to say about ESGs or anything in relation to that? Or
I think there's they're saying that there's going to be a market on this whole carbon credits thing, that if you don't emit, if you have carbon credits and you can sell them, it's complicated. It's a complicated thing because they want it to be complicated. It's part of this ESG thing, but the carbon credit situation is something that we also need to talk about in another video. How that's into these basically, if a company emits too much carbon dioxide, then they have to, or if it doesn't emit enough, you can sell your carbon credits to another company. I mean, it's a scam all the way around. We just need to be
aware. It is a scam, because why can you sell it to another company in the first place if they're actually making their carbon less?
Exactly.
It's definitely all a scam, and it needs to be exposed, and people need to know what's coming down the pipe, so they can better prepare.
They can make the real estate decisions if they own a home, if they need to move out of state, or if they need to pay off some debt so that they can own their home. I mean, you never really ultimately own your home because you have to pay taxes on it, right? So even if it's free and clear, you still got to pay taxes on it. So, and of course that can change. So it depends on what state you're in. So, but the less debt you have, the more, the better you'll be as it is now. So
I agree.
If you have any questions on real estate, of course, if you are planning on selling or moving out of state or buying, feel free to give us a call. We're happy to help you and answer any questions that you might have as well.
Yep, if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in California, you can definitely contact us with Gold Country Properties, so you can make the move and be better positioned for yourself and your family. And I would just like to thank you again, Mom, for being on the show, and just like to thank everyone for watching this video, and I hope you can take something away from this, and hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.
Thank you,
God
Alex.
bless. Bye.